Coming up, Viper versus Noblord.
To be honest, my lineup kind of ended up being targeting my first opponent, noblord.
I predicted Viper to bring cube decks or mid-rangey decks, but he brought full aggro, and these full aggro decks are able to just hit my decks in the face before I can get online.
I respect noblord a lot as a player. He's a really good player, and he made it to championship now. It's kind of unfortunate for him that my let's just target noblord lineup worked out as well as it did.
My lineup against my group is a rather rough one. I have an Odd Warrior, which is going to be quite powerful against my entire group. Oftentimes it's probably going to get banned. Then I have a Hunter, which is going to be also strong, but it probably won't get banned. And then I have my two OTK decks, the Quest Rogue and the Topsy-Turvy Priest, and they're both going to be fairly weak against Viper, who's my round one opponent.
Like, he seems to be very unfavored in the series versus me, so my way out of the groups is just beating noblord in the first round and then probably losing my second game and then winning against noblord again because he's favored versus the other two guys. And yeah, I just hope that the priest doesn't like sneak out a win, because then stuff can get ugly for me.
Viper's not usually an aggressive player, but what I'm hoping is that a lack of like mulligan knowledge or a lack of play knowledge might make him make some missteps. I've practiced matchups lots of times from both ends, and I know from the aggressive end that there's so many different paths that you can take. I hope that he takes like one of the weaker paths.
Welcome everybody to the initial kickoff match of the Winter Championships Hearthstone Championship Tour. My name is Frodan. I'm joined by Brian Kibler, and coming up we have noblord versus Viper. A little clash between Europe and North America, a tale as old as time itself. And let's go ahead and break down what we see. We have two very differing lineups. We have something very unusual both on noblord and Viper side. What's your take on this, Kibler?
Well, one thing that's really important to know coming into this tournament in general is that players knew not only their groups but their first round opponents before they even submitted their decks. And we heard noblord and Viper talking about how sort of trying to anticipate what they thought the other would bring really influenced their own deck building choices. And noblord, he thought, okay, well, Viper's likely to play these slower decks, and that's why he has stuff like Quest Rogue and Topsy Priest, which, as he said in that little interview piece, he really thinks will suffer having enough time to get online against Viper's very aggressive lineup.
Yeah, there's two decks that I'm very worried about. It's Topsy-Turvy, OTK Priest, and it's the Quest Rogue. Both of them are very vulnerable to aggressive strategies, which Viper has in spades. The one question mark, of course, is Malygos Rogue. That is a combo deck that tries to beat other control decks. Or other OTK decks, because it just gets it much quicker than other opponents. Right. And so this reminds me very similar of the strategy we saw from China in the previous season, where they brought 3 aggressive decks and a Malygos Druid.
Right.
And because the reason why is they're trying to just go over the top of these slower decks and really punish them. And so we'll see if that ends up lining up. The statistics strongly favor Viper, almost to a 2-to-1 ratio. The only question is there enough sample size for us to really know? Because I'm looking at the data. There's like 20 games logged in the past month of Murloc Paladin.
Right.
So how do you actually know? It even says that it's a 50-50 matchup against Quest Rogue, which I do not believe that.
Well, one of the really interesting things, we had a chance to sit down and talk to these players. Viper said that he specifically brought Murloc Paladin as opposed to the more common even Paladin or odd Paladin as far as an aggressive deck. And he specifically wanted his deck to be as strong as possible against Fan of Knives and Spirit Lash.
Right.
He was expecting there to be Cloning Gallery Priests and Quest Rogues that had those cards that if you're trying to build a board of 1/1s, you're going to end up getting punished. Whereas if you're playing Murloc Paladin, you play a Tidecaller, you Rock Pool Hunter it, and your opponents just sits there with their Spirit Lash and they're like, this gains me some life, I guess.
Right. I mean, I think that just shows you that Viper went one level deeper. I mean, there's only one single odd Paladin in this entire tournament, and it's from Ike. Yep. And the other person that considered it was Viper, and he said, you know what, I want to bring out Paladin, but just don't want to get destroyed by those big board-sweeping spells. Now, what does surprise me is the ban choices. Both Hunters being banned, which is not that surprising if you, are looking at it just from a glance, because, Hunter's really strong. But there's also some other decks that are worth thinking about.
we even heard Noblord say he didn't think that Viper would ban his Hunter in that little interview piece. And in particular, I think he may have expected his Odd Warrior to get banned, because Odd Warrior is obviously a very powerful deck against these more aggressive decks from Viper. So I'm a bit curious about that particular decision from the German player.
All right, well, we'll start this best of 5 in what could possibly be the most one-sided matchup you'll see all weekend. It is Secret Odd Mage, going first, having a play with Secret Keeper and Kirin Tormage. If that lands any Secret, Viper might just blows one out of the water. It is extremely difficult for a Quest Rogue to deal with this kind of pressure early on.
Yeah, the Odd Mage, the Odd Secret Mage, is just so powerful at pressuring the opponent's life total, and does have burst damage in the form of, well, Leroy Jenkins, as we see Viper pick up. Just the hero power dealing 2 damage allows you to back up your early aggression. So even once your opponent does potentially stabilize, if they don't have the quest completed with Vicious Scalehide, they really have just no way to compete in the game. And Viper here, he has a strong draw, and Noblord's draw is fine, I guess, but there's, still, like, he doesn't have Sonya or one of the things that will allow him to really quickly complete his quest.
Yep, and speaking of the quest, turn 1 is already a point of consideration for Noblord, and I love this hesitation. A lot of people think, okay, the way I have to win is to get this quest online, get the mana spent, but Noblord does have an opportunity to take out the Secret Keeper over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah, here he can coin Dagger, and looks like he's going to go ahead and just Stone Dead Bar. Same basic principle though, which is that he wants to ensure that this gets killed before Viper can get a secret online to buff it. That's right. So the quest can wait. He'll be able to spend that 1 mana later point. He's not planning on completing the quest off of the boar this game. Yeah,
the name of the game for Noblord is survival. A lot of times people might look at the Stone Toss board and think of it as a finishing card, but sometimes, if you just survive long enough, you'll win the board convincing with 4/4s and win in 2 turns after that.
Yep.
So Noblord recognizes the long-term plan here. And even though, Kirin Tormage just comes down, it's still a threatening minion as a 4/3, and Noblord would have to use his Southsea deckhand if he wants to destroy it.
Ooh, he actually has a second deckhand too, and that's pretty nice for his quest. Obviously, he's not going to play both right here, but it does give him some incentive to play the quest first, then potentially play the deckhand.
Yeah.
To take down the Kirin Tormage here. But there are just a lot of permutations of how he might want to spend his mana this turn.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is that because there's no secret in hand, maybe Noblord feels a lot more comfortable setting up a Vanish play. He did have Preparation and Vanish in his opening hand, and I think that is fairly crucial, because as good as Odd Secret Mage is with some of its damage spells like Cinderstorm and using its hero power, it is very minion dependent as well. So if Noblord can stall just long enough, he does have a really good play with being able to get 4 Southsea deckhands equivalent if he plays both and vanishes them.
Yeah, it's true. And this turn, we see Noblord definitely taking his time, wants to figure out what not only he wants to do this turn, but all of his sort of future turns that he can plan out here. Right. As you mentioned, he does need to try to get a quick quest, very likely completed, in order to have a great chance here. And if he does sacrifice that deckhand here, which would prevent damage over turns, yes, he does sacrifice. All right, yeah, he's gonna go ahead and hold on to them. So I think he agrees with you that he wants to play deckhand into Vanish perhaps next turn.
Yeah, I think this is the winning line, because then Noblord is only 1 bounce away from finishing the quest, and then he will be empty-handed essentially.
Right.
But the important thing is he now has a chance, which is more than you can ask for if your win percentage is about 10 to 15% based off the statistics.
We have many secrets.
Ends up working out okay for Viper. Just needed to get 1 damage onto that Wax Elemental. And
second Vanish is, pretty good. Yeah, and we see Noblord is going to go ahead and fire off the coin prep Vanish in the correct order.
Yes.
Not prep coin Vanish.
A mistake that many people have made. I mean,
I've been there.
We've all been there. At least you have an excuse that you're streaming. I don't have much of an excuse other than that I just did not pay attention.
So now, this is kind of an awkward spot for Viper. He has his Subject 9, which would give him how many secrets does he actually have? Yeah, he can actually play the Subject 9 into Kirin Tor double secret next turn. I think he has 4 secrets?
Yes,
yeah.
he has a counter spell as well. Which
does fill his hand. He's going to burn a card, but that's not a big deal. But getting the counter spell is important because it does mean that he can potentially strand something. Though Noblord picking up that second preparation is in a little bit of a better situation, potentially trying to protect his quest.
Well, what's really exactly. That's
there aren't that many.
You're right.
There aren't that many spells in this deck. It's basically just the preparations, the shadow steps, and the vanishes. So he'd need to have either preparation or shadow step effectively to counter the counter spell in order to get through, force through the spell he really wants to resolve.
Oh man, it really is decision point time because Noblord can. I mean, in Noblord's head, that is actually a really good draw because the South Sea deckhands and the preparation vanish #2 allows him to not only finish the quest but also destroys the subject 9.
Right, but the problem being that if he does play deckhand, prep, vanish, then he has just the quest against a face-up counterspell because of the subject 9. So that's ends up being really problematic for Noblord. He knows all the secrets that are in Viper's deck. So now also, now there's an explosive room. So it means that one of these deckhands is getting exploded if it comes down.
Right. And this is really tricky for Viper. Tricky from Viper if he doesn't play the counterspell because Noblord has to play with respect to it now.
Right.
And that fear is going to be creeping in the back of his mind. However, we are very quickly reaching that breaking point where Noblord might not have a chance anymore or does not have an opportunity to play around it.
Right.
There's 12 damage showing with the ability to just hero power in 2 turns.
Yep.
Sees the counter spell, and that was exactly what he was afraid of. But this Vanish #2 is going to buy him a little bit extra time.
Yeah, but the problem for Noblord here is he's still, because he had to, he hasn't actually, I don't think that's close to on. I don't think Viper's hero powered once.
Yeah, I don't think so. Actually, you're
Viper spent all of his mana on minions this game so far. So yeah, Jan'alai doesn't even do anything. But here, he's going to go ahead and get 2 more. Not just the 1. Oh, he's just moving them in between.
Yeah, Mirrority is not.
Okay, he's getting the ping off. Okay, yeah. Well, specifically, I was trying to figure out was he going to play the second Guarantor for the free Mirror Entity, but he wants to start pinging because of the Jan'alai he's drawn.
Right, and it's also set to lethal too with Leroy plus the hero power, and that would be 14. So Noblord picking up that Elven Minstrel. It's solid, but what's scary is that this explosive rune is going to deal 4 damage.
Yep.
It deals the damage equivalent to what the Divine Shield minion receives, and then the excess is delivered. So, Divine Shield, even though it takes 0, still has to pay the price for the explosive runes.
It does. And now Noblord, he is in a pretty terrible spot here. I mean, he is dead to Leroy on the board. He doesn't know that there's necessarily that Leroy.
Right.
He could use his deckhands to clear off the Firefly and the Flame almost, but even just ping Leroy still kills him. So there's really no way out of this for Noblord, and he's just going to try to figure out, okay, I'm just going to try and dig. Finds a Ziliax, which could be good later, but there's no later.
Yeah.
That's game.
And now you see why it's a difficult matchup, because Noblord did deal with a lot of the early game threats, even had an opportunity to finish the quest, but there's just too many problematic things from the Secret Mage, both aggressively and in disruption through that counterspell.
Yeah, that was the Subject 9 coming down was really what was backbreaking that game. Obviously, the early aggression is powerful and puts Noblord in the clock. That's fundamentally why the matchup is tough, but knowing that there was the counterspell there really meant that he couldn't play the sort of line that he was going for when he went with that early Vanish.
Yeah, that's right. So, again, this is one of the most one-sided matchups that you'll see in terms of the actual heads-to-head. We have Odd Mage's best matchup is 85 to 90% against Quest Rogue, and I think that goes to show you why. And even if Quest Rogue didn't receive one of its nerfs, I still think it would be a very difficult time.
Certainly.
Regardless if it was a 4-4 or 5-5.
Yeah, so much of what makes Quest Rogue powerful is its inevitability in long games, that you get to start making these 4-4s or 5-5s or whatever they are, and you don't get to play a long game because they are just playing their minions, hitting you in the face.
Yeah, well, the round 1 gambit here from Viper to target Noblord's tendency to bring slower decks is paying off. But we'll find out what happens when we come back to the HCT Winter Championships. Stay tuned for game number 2.
With the casters!
A hero that would win a battle royale, I mean, it's got to be Rexar, right? He's got like the perfect aim.
I'm gonna have to go for Rexar.
He's got the steady shot.
He's just the best. He has all of the animal companions as extra friends, which I don't know if would count as cheating or not, but would get the job done.
What heroes would win in a battle royale? Well, Garrosh just does not seem to die ever in Warcraft lore, so he's my #1 pick.
Garrosh, I'm a fan of just going for the guy with the biggest muscles and the biggest hammers.
It's the brute force and gung-ho tactics are not how you win. The best way to consistently take that W is to play smart, perhaps hide every now and again when necessary, and only pick your smart fights. So I think the rogue style kind of plays towards that the best. So I'm gonna go with Valera.
I think it might be Morgul the Oracle. He's kind of unassuming, so no one try and go for him first. He can control the elements, so I think that he could make himself a good hidey hole until he's, one of the last people left, and then take his opponents by surprise.
Wouldn't it be cool if Hearthstone was a battle royale, and there was this giant map, Hearthstone land, we'll call it, circular map, a lot of cool Hearthstone stuff, basically all taverns, and you drop onto the map as just yourself, random guy, and on the map is a bunch of cards. And you pick up cards and you build a deck, and then every person you meet in Hearthstone land, you battle with your deck, and the last person standing wins.
Tickets sold out days ago. Oh, that's too bad. If only there was someone around with tickets to sell, I'm sure they would be willing to make a deal. For gold. At triple the face value.
I will pay for that. For justice.
Raffle tickets! Get your raffle tickets! Everyone gets a raffle ticket. Keep it ready for halftime. We have the greatest prize anyone's ever seen.
Oh.
Get your raffle!
For justice. For justice. For justice. For justice. Wow.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's Winter Championship. Viper currently leads 1-0 over noblord after using Secret Odd Mage to take down that Quest Rogue. And hopefully things will start looking up for noblord, and one of the decks that might help him do it is his Odd Warrior. That is a deck that, at least statistically across the board, looks pretty good. However, again, there's not much data on things like how Murloc, Paladin, and Malygos Rogue look against it, just because there's not many people playing those decks on ladder.
Yeah, it is one of the hallmarks of Viper's lineup is it does include a number of pretty unusual decks.
Right.
And that is a place that you can get edge against opponents who, they may have played 1,000 games against a typical version of a particular metagame deck. However, when you're playing against these lists that don't really show up very commonly on ladder, like this one that Viper's playing right here, Malygos Rogue. This is not a deck that you run into very frequently, and this is a deck that can kill you from 30 quite readily, which is something that makes it, potentially pretty powerful in this matchup against Quest Rogue. This is not something that I've ever played. These two decks are not ones that I decide, I'm gonna go jam some games of Malygos Rogue on ladder. Not my style exactly, but
you're more of a test rogue kind of guy.
Exactly. You know me well, Frodan.
I've watched your stream a handful of times and talked to you once. Yeah, the Quest Rogue versus Malygos Rogue has actually a pretty even split down the middle, and I think it largely has to do with their power spikes and how good they are at finding specific cards. So for Viper, the key card in his deck, in my opinion, is the Elven Minstrel, to make sure that he has the cards in hand. For people who are not familiar with Malygos Rogue's newest take, is that you utilize a card called Kobold Illusionist that has a death rattle of summoning a 1/1 copy of a minion in your hand. And obviously you're holding Malygos, so if you get out a 4-mana Cobalt Illusionist, able to trigger its Death Rattle effect through Necreon Blade, which was mulliganed, or through Necreon Vial, you can get 1, 2, maybe even 3 copies of Malygos, and a single spell will basically kill them. And it's extremely powerful and explosive, but it's also very volatile, because you think Miracle Rogue of the past was very dependent on 1 or 2 cards, so like Auctioneer. This deck is extremely dependent on things like Elven Minstrel and making sure you have the right hand.
And so much of it is about just digging through your deck to find them. We see Roll the Bones as one of the key cards in his deck. It's not because he has a bunch of Death Rattles. His Death Rattle is that one you see on the screen, Code Illusion. Only one. You're only looking to pay your 2 mana in order to draw another card.
Right.
And that's why this deck has 2 copies of Shiv, 2 copies of Fan of Knives. It's just looking to draw through its deck as quickly as possible to assemble Cobalt Illusionist, Malygos, Necreon Blade, boom.
Yes, and you know, I do think that noblord does have legitimate pressure opportunities if he's able to develop that quest pretty early on.
I mean, we see this here. You know, he's just playing the Lab Recruiter here for pressure. He just wants a 3/2 for 2. He's not trying to use it for any kind of fancy later on, you know, combo with resetting thing. No, he's just looking to put minions to the board and hit Viper. It's not a position that Quest Rogue typically is in, but this is a matchup where Quest Rogue is fundamentally the aggressor.
Roll again.
And we see, roll, re-roll. Didn't like what I got the first time.
Would you backstab this Elven Minstrel? Do you think that 3 life is really important to conserve at this point? Because Viper was okay with the first one, but I don't think he necessarily wants to play too aggressively with his life total, but it's still very early on.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, he potentially may want to hold on to backstab in order to give him an easy combo piece for Elven Minstrel.
That's true.
Because he doesn't want to sacrifice his preparations, which can be valuable later. Obviously, he doesn't want to use burn spells like Sinister Strike, but he does have double prep, and you know that Fan of Knives does not have a Minstrel, so he does decide to just fire that off and get that off the board.
Yeah, what's unfortunate, though, is that Viper, if he does not deal with it now, is going to take an additional 3 damage. So it's actually saving him 6 life, I think, from his perspective, unless he was willing to backstab the following turn. If he's willing to backstab the following turn, then why'd you even take that 3 damage in the first place?
Yes, it's just a little bit of a, do I want a little bit more information, you know, or do I want to take, like you said, 6 damage? Because he could Fan of Knives stab it next turn. It's an opportunity.
Right. I don't like being in the low 20s.
No.
If I can stay pretty close to full. And noblord's taking the slow route for the quest, bouncing his Novice Engineer. And this could be a nod to how slow Viper start has gotten, although it might get a lot quicker. That Elven Minstrel is a big-time draw, because if Viper picks up exactly that Cobalt Illusionist and Malygos, because he also could pick up the second Elven Minstrel, for example, the game might actually be over at that point.
Very, very close.
Because he already has 2 preparations.
Well, specifically he has Necreon Vial, which is so powerful. Necreon Vial gives you 2 additional Death Rattles, which means that you get 3 copies of the Illusionist. Because often you end up wanting to Necreon Vial, then kill it with, say, a backstab or an Eviscerate, and then you just add up additional damage to your opponent's face.
Well, I mean, so he can Eviscerate and then Elven Minstrel.
Yep.
He has 2 preparations, so for 6 mana, he'll have Cobalt Illusionist, Malygos.
There it is.
And the Necreon Vial with 2 spells. So this game's actually already over.
So he doesn't have the Necreon Blade, so he only is able to he can play the Illusionist, prep Necreon Violet. He only has 1 mana left over, which is Sinister Strike, Eviscerate, which is +10 to each of those. Yeah, no, that's actually.
Yeah, it's 20 plus 7.
It's 14 plus 11, right? It's 27.
Yeah, 27.
So it's actually not quite lethal.
Oh, it's not quite lethal. He's at 29.
Yeah. So, but again, that's just how close this game is to just being over, based on that single draw. There's a second Minstrel that actually gets nothing right now, because this deck is specifically built to always get its combo if you draw a Minstrel, because 1 Minstrel either draws you the entire combo or your other Minstrel. It's why one of the reasons that it doesn't play stuff like the Shiny Finder, which is in some versions of Malygos Rogue in order to find the Necreon Blade to be able to set up that additional damage from the combo. However, it does mean that you have a chance of missing with your Elven Minstrel, which can give the deck a higher fail rate.
Right. And it's one of those things where Viper plays a little bit a little bit liberally with his first Eviscerate, right? He could have saved that, but he also wants to hold on to things like the evasion, because he doesn't know if noblord can stay out of range repeatedly and then start threatening him on the back end.
And the scary thing, the scariest thing for Viper is actually getting to the stage where Noblord can play Valera the Hollow, because it gives him multiple additional ways out of getting comboed. One is just the stealth. If the stealth just buys enough time for Noblord to just attack and get meaningful damage in.
Right. That is why one of the most...
Wow, he's eviscerating? Wait, what? What just happened?
Preventing the vanish. Punish?
Okay, sure. Wait.
No, he's at 7
he
cards. Oh, he was at 8 cards, right? And then
would have been 8 cards. Okay, yeah. So that was the goal there. Was
Yeah.
he's using his eviscerate to not burn a card with vanish? But
couldn't you eviscerate the face?
It does seem like that's a better choice.
Oh, sorry. Less Sonya trades. Okay.
Okay, that's what it is. That's what it is.
That's actually fairly clever.
Yeah, I was just like trying to figure out what is going on here.
Yeah, no, because I was like, because the advantage came to him, I'm like, oh, it's the advantage, but then he also had Sonya in the hand, and the more health that's on the board, the more noblord can trade.
That is quite clever.
That is very, very smart, and and people might look at the Eviscerate and be like, well, you're just giving up your chance to win. The moment Viper draws a Razor Petal Volley, like that, this game is also like over. So I really like how Viper is not only able to recognize the situation, but also deny noblord some of his best plays. Very intelligent.
Yeah, it's definitely a very unorthodox play from Viper there, but does respect the best possible card that noblord could have to advance his quest, which is of course that Sonya. And there's a Sinister Strike, so
yeah, still kind of same boat, 26 damage. But the guys, again, goes to show you that Viper is very close. And the moment he picks up any other burst that can go with it, which looks like it's pretty much just Shiv and the Razor Petal Volleys, that'll be it. But there's also a lot of ways for him to continue stall. He has a second evasion. He has 2 vanishes himself.
And here, yeah, I expect that given the respect that Viper paid to the Sonya last turn, he will very likely just dagger and stab off the Divine Shield, not play that Elven Minstrel.
Yeah, why does he have to play this Elven Minstrel?
Right, there's no incentive. Last turn he played it because he needed to get, wanted to get cards out of his hand, I suppose. Oh, he's going to play it this turn, though.
I mean, it's not as threatening if it's just 2 health, because your opponent would just be able to get 2 copies of minions, and Noblord's right now focused on the Novice Engineer.
Sure, that's true. That's true, and that doesn't have Charger Rush.
Yeah, I mean, Noblord was thinking about insta-slamming the Sonya Shadow Dancer to get the copies of minions for his quest completion. However, he doesn't exactly have the cleanest minions to do it with either.
Right.
I mean, he has a Novice Engineer where he can trade in, but his Novice Engineer still, I think this is his 3rd.
I suppose there's also the concern that if you don't play the Minstrel this turn, that your opponent is likely to advance more to the quest and then can potentially like heal off of the, say a Vicious Scalehide later on if you're forced to play it due to having a full hand.
Makes sense. Now we're getting the 4th bounce already preemptively. Oh, that's the 5th, excuse me.
Choose soon.
Pardon me, that's right. He bounced it one time before that as well with the Youthful Brewmaster. So that's going to be a finished quest next turn for Viper. All the more reason, perhaps, of why he has to take defensive measures and also start considering things like his evasion in future turns and the timing of exactly what you were talking about.
There's Vanish. So, Viper is now, again, not really in a spot where he's found any of that burst.
Right,
and Vanish doesn't really do a ton against Noblord. Obviously, it does bounce these, which are going to be 4/4s, but they don't cost very much to replay. And Noblord has Valera,
right,
which means that Viper is getting further in sort of a problem situation.
Yeah, the Valera the Hollow is the really scary thing for Viper now. If he can hold on to it, and I think that might be the big deciding factor of often why this matchup might look close percentage-wise, because if you can shut down your opponent's plays, with Valera because they can't target it. Actually, the only way they can is Sinister Strikes, which would work, but they have to be at 26 or below. Huh, that's actually interesting the way that works out. Viper sees also the second Vanish, by the way, so this is him being more confident that, you know, perhaps he doesn't have as much ways to defend himself.
And the quest is already just completed, so there's no downside to playing this Elven Minstrel because noblord's at full health, so there's no Sonya concern here.
Right.
And there's no Scale Hide concern because, well, he can't heal above 30 anyway.
Right. But I mean, noblord also loses that like Stone Toe Spore, Sousy Deckhand, Vanish, and then burst for like 16 or more. So we'll see if noblord or how noblord chooses to do this. I think for one thing, with the evasion being played, he might be a little bit scared about the Valera timing. He might say, "Is this time now to Valera?" Because he does have some pretty good stuff in his hand already. So burning a card wouldn't be the end of the world here, because he is at 10.
Yeah, the Valera here does protect him if they're, if Viper is just waiting for, one more card to actually end the game. Valera's powerful here. Crystal Core, though, allows him to, does allow him to push some damage.
Sees the evasion. It's, a lot of it's the timeout. It's the ice block for the class. And Noblord's going to take that risk. Says, you know what? You got me, but I need to do this.
Yep. And Viper finds Necrium Blade.
That's pretty big.
It is.
That is very, very
He can
big.
actually Vanish Blade hit the face.
Yes, instead of the 27. And that is really, really important.
So I believe then if noblord draws the other deckhand or a bounce spell, he wins, because Viper's at 13. And he'd be able to play deckhand.
Well, one of the trickier things, too, is even if he didn't have it, Viper also has that Glacial Shard on the board. So you just freeze the face and they can't attack.
Well, you can hero power.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You can always hero power to replace your Necrium Blade and get the Death Rattle effect.
There you go. Yeah, you have the mana to do that. So in this position, then, what's the best hedge for Viper in this spot? I don't really know if there is one. I think you just got to go for it. Wait. He just wants to get the extra damage on board in case he needs to punch through some minions.
But doesn't playing this against an opponent who has Vicious Scale Hide?
That's okay, because he gets 3 copies of Malygos with the double Necrium Vial. Actually, this is just game then, right? Because the Malygos
was 32.
Yeah.
So he plays Cobalt Illusionist, Prep Vial, Hero Powers or Swings.
Yep, it's 36.
Yeah, I think it's actually just enough damage.
No, it's just absurd
damage. You're at 30. Wait, is it? Hold on, because he's not doing it. Wait. Hold on. Each of those is plus 15, right? If he does it that way.
Yeah. Because it's okay. So Necrium Vial plus a Necrium Blade is 3 Malygos, and so that's 15 plus 15 for the spell damage plus the
it's 36.
It's 36.
Isn't it?
I think Viper wasn't 100% sure that you could target it.
He may have just not been looking for that.
So when Valera the Hollow is played as a battle cry, you gain stealth, which means you can't target it with abilities like Fireball or Frostbolt or Kill Command. But things that target things automatically can still hit it, just like a Deadly Shock can hit a Stranglethorn Tiger. So as far as my recollection goes, this should still be lethal the previous turn, and I think Viper just made extra sure that was the case. And Noblord's like, oh man, he has it. He has everything.
Yeah, it's just the enemy hero. The enemy hero, doesn't matter if they're stealthed or not, but regardless, Viper has 3 Malygos into Sinister Strike, and he leads 2-0 in this match.
Yeah, that is brutal for Noblord. He needed that victory desperately because Quest Rogue is a problematic deck for him to get through in this series. And with that, Murloc Paladin is all that remains. Viper and his risky lineups is quickly becoming one of my favorite things about competitive Hearthstone, because you saw him bring that controlled Dragon Shaman in the playoffs to absolutely wreck the field in a time where people basically say Shaman is unplayable ever since the Shutterwalk nerf.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, Viper is someone who is very well known for playing sort of anti-control style lineups, playing very controlling or basically control decks or Miracle Rogue is what he's mostly known for. So it took a lot of players off guard bringing this lineup here, and you know, noblord certainly one of them who planned his lineup around trying to beat what he expected Viper to play, and well, nothing close to what he actually brought.
And remember that Viper also has qualified for the World Championship based off his performance in the winter season, and so he doesn't necessarily have a lot of pressure on him. He says, yeah, I want to play obviously for the money and the glory, but you know, I already got my spot in the World Championship, so he's taking it easy, but maybe that's helping him because he looks like he's, well, outside of that one missed turn, he's brought a really cool lineup and he's playing really well.
Well, his attitude actually was not, you know, oh, I'm already qualified, I don't really care. It was, you know, I want to win everything, and I'm not bringing this as some sort of, you know, test, because actually noblord was hypothesizing that, well, did he bring aggro decks here so we can't just put him on control decks for Worlds? Just trying to expand his range of what we can expect. And no, he's just like, I just think these are the best decks for me to bring to this tournament, so that's what I'm doing, because I always want to win.
All right, well, winning is what Viper is doing. He's up 2-0. Noblord has to reverse sweep Murloc Paladin, which we haven't seen in quite some months. So when we come back to the HCT Winter Championship, we'll find out what's going to happen in this initial match.
With the developers.
Of all the cards in Hearthstone, I would say probably my favorite from an aesthetic standpoint, or certainly from an art standpoint, would be Archmage Antonidas. That one was just a perennial favorite of mine. From the very first release of the set, it was a card that meant a lot in that we hadn't seen a lot of him in World of Warcraft, but to actually get to realize him in the flesh, so to speak, in a full color version, if not for the first time, then certainly I think the most epic time, through the art of Wayne Reynolds. I ended up loving the piece so much that I ended up purchasing the original from him, and it currently hangs in my studio at home, and I love the piece.
Probably the Inquisitor. That one I actually had to double check and make sure that that was the final art because it looked like something out of a Del Toro movie.
One of my favorite looking cards from Witchwood was Blood Witch, just because it was a really well done style, and it kept this idea of both like evil and cute going on a gnome, and I'm not normally huge on gnomes.
Medivh is probably one of my favorite cards, just because he looks so jovial. He's holding his cup, he's so happy. He's just like, yeah, it's party time, let's go, let's have a good time. So I really enjoy that art.
The Cabal Shadow Priest is one of the oldest cards, but her golden animation has her like taking control of someone, and it's like a purple glow. It's just super cool to me.
One of my favorite pieces of art from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan was Cabal Crystal Runner. I've always been a fan of Draenei, and it does a really great job of conveying this sort of like frantic need to get a job done or a task done. It works really well with the theme of the set.
Countess Ashmore is just beautiful art. The full-blown piece of her is just fantastic, like her in the forest, is super cool.
Another piece I really enjoy a lot is actually Cobalt Librarian by Matt Dixon. There's so much going on in that piece. You know, he's a librarian, which is very serious usually. They always tell you, shh, be quiet. But he's standing there and he has this wonder in his eye and looking around at all these books and all this knowledge in front of him, and then he accidentally sets everything on fire.
By earth, by air, rain and fire. The only things a real troll desire. First to smash and to mash and to bash and maybe mangle. Here it's strangled. Thorn, you'll be warned. My low's gonna trash ya. Say your prayers with voodoo, bash ya. Time for fun, we're gonna run ya through. Too bad for you.
It's only once a generation.
One victor wins the confrontation.
Standing here, got no fear. I'm the best in the arena.
Man, you never seen a hero cut you down to zero.
Victory is no joke. Careful at your door.
Cloak.
Get your stars. Our star is born. Here in Stranglehold.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's Winter Championship initial match between Viper and Noblord in Group A, where the winner will go on and play in the winner's match. For today, we are going to do all the initial matches for all the groups. And if you guys missed game number 2, it was Malygos Rogue versus Quest Rogue. Do want to make a small correction to the last couple turns there. One thing that Gilbert and I were tunneling so much was the Cobalt Illusionist and Malygos. We ignored the fact that Elemental can also be pulled as a minion.
Yeah, that is a big part of the minimum minion build, is ensuring that you don't have any minion potentially glutting your hand when you need to go for the combo, because Cobalt Illusionist is a random minion in your hand. Well, if there's 2, that's not necessarily a Malygos. You could end up with a 1/1 Minstrel. That's bad. So
that's right. I mean,
Viper wasn't miscounting anything. We were the idiots, and he did it perfectly.
Well, I mean, you even brought it up. You said that's why we don't even play shiny Cavern Finder.
Right, exactly.
Right?
You want to be ensured that you have the maximum possibility of getting those things through, and Viper didn't want to take any risks. There's no reason. He knew 100% chance next turn, so go for it.
He is a rogue expert on many reasons for exactly what you just saw. Now, we'll turn into a matchup that I gotta say I have never seen yet. It is the Murloc Paladin versus the Quest topsy-turvy one-turn kill Stone Dust board.
You mean this isn't representative of all of your ladder games?
No, this is a segment on Who's Me Reign Supreme, which Firebat would be playing the Paladin, and someone like me or you would be playing a Quest Priest.
Well, this specifically is not. This isn't some sort of grindy Quest Priest. This is topsy-turvy Quest Priest, which, if you're not familiar, uses combination of Radiant Elemental to reduce the cost of your spells, the Test Subject plus Vivid Nightmare, and Topsy-Turvy to generate a bunch of buffs for your Stone Tusk Boar. And you because you can keep doing this on your Test Subject, keep loading these up, you can actually get more and more of them, so you can continue to make additional copies of Stone Tusk Boar, make them even bigger, and eventually just kill your opponent. But that takes time. And like we've been saying quite a bit in this particular matchup, Viper's lineup is not intended to give Noblord time. In fact, it is intended to do quite the opposite and kill him as fast as possible.
Yeah, I do find this kind of funny that Viper threw away the Nightmare Amalgam and just got a Nightmare Amalgam right back. So we've all been there for sure. The thing is, can Noblord deal with the Gentle Megasaur? Because, the thing about this Topsy-Turvy Priest deck is that it is relatively light on removal. It's a deck that favors insane card draw and combo pieces, and perhaps even a little bit too reliant on Amara, Warden of Hope, in order to get the clear as well. So with Noblord having 2 Mass Hysteria and Psychic Screams, he might be very dependent on drawing those cards even more than his combo pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Viper, again, is just looking to close the game out. And specifically, as we were talking before, he played Murloc Paladin because it doesn't have so many 1-health minions. It is not reliant on building up a board of Silverhand recruits like Odd Paladin, or sometimes Even Paladin. It has 1/2s for 1. It has 3/4s for 3, and it has the Gentle Megasaur to take advantage of those sticking at all. Noblord's deck is going to spend time trying to get to the later stages of the game and wants to hit its Mass Hysterias and Psychic Screams, and Viper's looking to close the door on him before that can happen. Ooh, Coin Blessing of Kings on the Murloc with the Megasaur means that potentially Viper can have a Wind Fury come down as the adapt for the Megasaur here. Just looking to get as much damage in as quickly as possible and keep Noblord from getting his card draw and assemble his combo, or more crucially, find his removal.
Yeah, that's the thing about this Murloc Paladin. Remember, we actually did see Murloc Paladin versus a deck that functions a little bit similarly to how the Quest Priest was, which is Reno Jackson. And a lot of times, the Murloc Paladin would just set up a huge board, even after if you healed to full.
Right.
And it would just hit you for like 35 afterwards. So, Viper is going to have a very tall, intimidating board if Noblord continues to let it expand, but it's not like he has much of a choice.
Right. And I believe that's 4 Death Rattles for Noblord toward his quest.
Right.
Usually you see people hold the Radiant Elementals because they're so important to get to the later stages of the game as part of your combo. However, Noblord wants as much board presence as possible here to try to combat Viper's board, because he doesn't have the time to get to the late stages of the game if he just tries to hold on to those combo pieces for later.
Exactly. He still can get it done. He still has a Radiant Elemental, 2 Shadow Visions, and a Vivid Nightmare, so if things work out pretty well, that could go in his favor. Also, if he's able to stick Amara onto the board, that is a potential way for him to, potential path to victory. But I think that potential is slipping away with each passing turn. This is so much damage.
Seance is actually kind of interesting. He can steal a Righteous Protector, which can absorb a bit of damage.
Okay, I like that.
So Righteous Protector and killing one of these at least absorbs 4 damage, which has to be at least a little bit appealing.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
just that if you can complete the quest, Seance with Amara is just exactly what you're looking for.
Right, that's often how you beat minion-based decks. You're not looking to go nuts with your combo. You're just like, okay, eventually you do, but it's not assembling as fast as possible is not how you win. You win by getting to Amara and just stopping them from being able to kill you, using your removal to clear up their board, and then okay, well I have tons of time now.
Right. Noblord has one more test subject. He can drop. Basically, there's 2 loot hoarders and a test subject, and then finish the quest. But he's leaving up 10 on the board, and if his opponent has a Gentle Megasaur, which he does, there's a pretty decent chance this game is over. Does Noblord have a choice, though?
Yeah, I don't know that he has. The play that I sort of alluded to as a possibility, at least, Seance into that, does give him, okay, I like this. So this means that heal here means he still has test subject.
Oh!
Well, that's not going to be lethal, right?
That is still a lot of damage.
Yeah, but a lot of damage doesn't mean anything if you're Amaraing next turn.
That's true. That's right.
So right now, Megasaur, Wind Fury is the game on the spot. And +3 attack.
That's exactly what Noblord was playing around.
Right, by healing himself means +3 attack does not kill him. So this play from Noblord.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So rather than this being 10 + 6 lethal, it means that, okay, he gets to still spend his next turn playing that second test subject, playing the Amara into this.
And then what starts getting really scary too is, how long will Viper allow things like the test subject and the Radiant Elementals to survive onto the board? Because, Topsy Priest, if you underestimate it, just saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep hitting their life total aggressively and ignore their minions on board, they get some real crazy stuff. I mean, hypothetically, Noblord could have lethal next turn if he already preemptively played 3 mana worth of minions.
And Viper's taking his time figuring out, okay, he wants the attack, which is not necessarily 100% obvious.
Right.
Because, if he knows, okay, well, he's going to play an Amara next turn. Now, but this gives him just a lot of damage after that as well.
Exactly. And Noblord does have that Amara available to him, because I think test subject number 2 will complete the quest, and then he can play it. Does he draw first?
There's a little bit of awkwardness of playing his second test subject as far as his ability to be at least guaranteed he can complete his combo later.
That's true, but
one interesting thing from Viper's perspective, should Viper have killed the Radiant Elemental?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, like if he knows that Amara is coming down, Amara has to come down, right? So should you use the 6 damage from your Amalgam to kill the Radiant Elemental to stop any potential shenanigans here?
No, I think that's a really good point. And more importantly, like, if Noblord is is that a second powered shield?
That's actually well, it's not a really big deal because the Tide Collar still becomes 12 here, right?
Yeah,
with the Murloc.
Okay.
But it could be. There's a world in which that actually does matter. A second Megasaur. But because of the double powered shield, he has to play War Leader to get through the Amara.
Well, there's also a chance that the Juggle might snipe one of these one-health minions.
It did. So now, so okay, he's cleared off both test subjects. So now, in order for Noblord,
he has to revive it now.
But he has to revive it when he can go off. In order for him to actually be able to get his combo off, now Viper's just playing anti-combo defense because Noblord is forced into the position to play both test subjects.
That said, Viper's hand is looking very weak after this, so if Noblord does have that mass hysteria.
Yeah.
And when you start having more than 3 minions or 4 minions onto the board, the math starts to exponentially increase with the possible outcomes.
Right.
I tried to hear Monsanto one time talk about the possible variance and permutations of attacks that Mass Hysteria will do with like 4-on-4 minions. And he said something stupid like, you know, like millions of possibilities. And it's like, okay, I can't really fathom that. So, you know, I think noblord might end up just pulling the trigger defensively and then has an opportunity to stick some minions onto the board.
Yep.
The question is do you trade beforehand or do you just attack after?
It's weird because if you is this like that was not great for noblord here.
Yeah, I don't know if this Deadbringer actually does anything except puts a it draws a Blood Mage Thalnos. That is That is a good draw here for Viper.
It is. I'm gonna go ahead and get
that is
Wind Fury.
Wind Fury is very good.
Wind Fury's 12 right now.
Reporting for duty.
Is it worth protecting your Tide Caller? Probably not. I mean, it's 6 damage you're missing, but at the same time, you are out of cards. You need to conserve your resources.
It does, but if you know that your opponent has Blood Mage Thalnos, it means that you're, I guess, you're potentially giving up 6 damage if your opponent just like Spirit Lashes you.
Yeah, there isn't no.
Your opponent's going to attack that anyway and Spirit Lash you.
Yeah, I mean there is no Spirit Lash in hand, but I think you're right.
But as far as like what are the sort of things that can go bad here? Like how important is that Tide Caller to you? What are these cards likely to be?
Right.
He's going for the Twilight's Call. All right. Isn't this his second Twilight's Call?
Yes.
So he can't get another test subject now, right?
Well, he could have. Yeah, he can't get it now. I think his hope was maybe like a Seance or something.
Yeah, because he could get a test subject and Seance it. Right. Is his goal?
Too
his goal there?
Too many Deadringers are in the pool. Like 2 died in the beginning. Then he revived 2 more.
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. His pool is so many Deadringers.
And then he played 1 more. So it's like 5 Deadringers, a Loot Hoarder, and 2 test subjects. It's like, well, yeah, statistically, it's going to be Deadringer most of the time. 12 plus 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 22 with the Gentle Megasaur. So not enough for Viper to close this game out. But he can put his opponent on a 2-turn lethal. That Shadow Vision's draw is very big for noblord, but like it can help him find the Psychic Scream.
But what does, I mean, the question is, what does he even do at this point? Is he going to win by seancing a Megasaur and beating him down with it? I'm just trying to piece together because he's cast both Twilight's Calls. He's played both test subjects.
Actually,
he cannot generate an additional test subject.
Maybe
There's
you're
no
right.
way, right?
No, well, if he does, let's say he does Seance something.
Oh, there we go.
Well,
ride the Ziliax to victory.
I mean,
Ziliax Seance it. Get another one.
In all seriousness, you could just get a Megasaur, flip it with the Topsy-Turvy Divine Spirit, and then try to pressure that way.
I'm not saying that noblord is out of this by any means, because there are like these these corner case bizarre scenarios that can come up of just I'm going to kill you with minions with my combo deck.
Right.
But his primary road to victory, I believe, is completely gone.
Ends up going with Psychic Scream over the Spirit Lash. He had the Spirit Lash with Blood Mage Thanos and Stone Dust board. Not very reliable.
Oh,
Divine
dear.
Favor.
Oh, and we see the pain on Noblord's face.
Woo.
That's getting Hall of Fame, but not just yet.
Yeah.
Not before it draws 5, 6 cards for Viper.
Ooh, Noblord is like, oh, man, if only I fast forward the clock to April. Oh, man. That is brutal, to say the least. And now Viper does not have to worry about hand economy issues, because if he was drawing 1 card per turn, that actually gave Noblord a legitimate chance to find an opportunity to stick a minion. And with this, I mean, Noblord does have a way to strike back with the Ziliax Seance combination, which can magnetize onto itself, but he needs a little bit of setup and time.
Yeah, he's got to just figure out, okay, previously, before that Divine Favor, he was like, all right, Viper's low on cards. Maybe I can assemble something like you mentioned, the Ziliax Seance. Maybe I can, win this game in a bizarre, honest way with my combo deck. But now, with just a bunch of cards in hand for Viper, that is looking so unlikely.
Looking for any semblance of a game plan here. Noblord has nothing.
He's just getting in there with the board.
Yeah, well, if you stick the board onto the board, it gives Noblord the ability to trade and maybe like make Ziliax stay alive. But that call to arms just allows Viper to pull out more cards from his deck. And remember, Viper still has that second Divine Favor we haven't really mentioned, which gives him the ability to feel a little bit more aggressive with how he uses his resources.
This may look weird. He been attacking into Blood Mage style list. This is, again, to play around the threat of Spirit Lash, which Noblord finds.
Yep. Also, Noblord has to test for the secret. Sees that it's not redemption. And this will see that it's not noble sacrifice.
He already found no sacrifice, no divine shield thing.
Yeah,
so now it's hidden wisdom. I believe it's Eye for an Eye or Hidden Wisdom are the two things that it could be.
Right.
And I think that he is unlikely to suspect Eye for an Eye. But here, yeah, Seance gonna get Hidden Wisdom. 2 more cards for Viper.
Oh man, it's brutal.
And despite the fact that Viper's brought in so many cards, he has been Psychic Scream twice. So he still has so many more cards left in his deck.
Right.
Not to mention that just like he even if they were at similar points in fatigue, the hero power making Silverhand recruits is just eventually going to kill the priest.
I kind of wonder what Noblord's saving the topsy-turvy for. I think if I were in the position, I'd kind of want to try and maximize his potential to survive.
Yeah,
but
he's gonna maximize his time here. Hack things up, and Viper was the favorite coming in under both players' perspectives and takes a solid 3-0 win in the first game of this group.
Yeah, this felt like a deck-building victory to me more than anything. And, what I love about it, it wasn't just the usual aggressive lineup that we see, which is Odd Rogue. We might see, a Hunter deck. We might see Odd Paladin instead. But Viper chose very unusual stuff. The Malygos Rogue, the Murloc Paladin, and even Secret Odd Mage is not a very popular deck that you see outside of maybe when you play on ladder. And Viper is one of 2 people to bring it for this event. So I think Viper made the fantastic call, which seems to be one of his strengths. He's a very good technical player, but he also is able to make the proper meta reads for tournaments, which has been helping him this year go so far in many events.
Yeah, he's brought some very unusual decks to a number of events so far, and it's really paid off. So, he may be looking to steal another spot for the World Championship.
All right, well, Viper is our winner for the initial kickoff match of the Winter Championship. He's waiting for a couple words on his victory.
Thanks very much, guys. Yeah, I'm joined by Viper after his 3-0 victory over Noblord. And that was a pretty good sweep. And I want to ask a question about that last game. You saw that he was forced to use both test subjects. What was going through your mind there? Did your game plan change after that, or did you know you had the victory?
My game plan kind of changed because after he used both test subject, I tried to figure out, okay, how can he actually win this game? He already used one of the other combo parts on turn 3. So even winning with the Resurrect spell to get a test subject back was very difficult to impossible, I think. And after he used the second Resurrect spell, I was like, okay, I'm just going to clear all his minions and I think I win. And it seemed like that's just what happened.
Yeah, and you brought the Murloc Paladin, and a lot of players were kind of questioning you for that decision because Odd Paladin exists, and it's a good variation of aggressive Paladin. Why did you decide to bring Murloc Paladin over the Odd Paladin in this event?
I think Odd Paladin is just not aggressive enough to actually beat all the combo decks. For example, all the good priest decks right now, all the priest decks you want to beat, they run Spirit Lash, and one Spirit Lash at turn 2, 3, 4 kind of can beat Odd Paladin, so I just wanted to play the more aggressive deck. Odd Paladin is actually not that good in beating slower decks, it just beats other aggro decks.
And final question, also related to your lineup. I picked you to win as a prediction. I love the Malygos Rogue, but there's some people that are like, where does it fit in his lineup? Why did he bring this deck? It's not very good. Why did you decide to bring Malygos Rogue to this event of all things, and how does it fit into your lineup?
To be honest, the thing what aggro decks in general want to do is beat combo decks and kind of beat the slower controllish decks, right? And Malygos Druid is the most extreme deck that it just almost auto wins against anything that's not aggro. Like it's faster than any other combo deck, and it beats most of the control decks because they don't really have counterplay to it. I mean, you cannot out armor the damage potential of the deck. You can't really Mojo Master them because they have 30 damage of 6 mana, and just really fit it in terms of being an aggro combo deck, kind of.
well, we'll see if more players decide to bring in the future. But congratulations on your 3-0, and good luck in your matches later in the week. But with that, let's send it back over to the boys at the desk.
Thank you very much, TJ and Viper. I just got to say that I love Viper's attitude. You can hear his thoughts, very intelligent guy. But man, does him and TJ are like two peas in a pod. They kind of dress similar. They both got the nice the beard, very very fun and wholesome conversation.
I think Viper's a little more serious than TJ. You know, but
a little
bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. But TJ's also known for his serious demeanor at all times. Obviously. We're just getting started here. That was our first match of many. We have 8 initial matches for all 4 groups, and that is just the first in the books. If you're a noblord fan, don't worry, he'll come back through the lower bracket. But until then, we're going to march on through Group A. Coming up next, we have Yueying from China going up against Tansoku from Japan. And if you missed it, Viper was able to defeat noblord by a score of 3-0. Don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone Championship Tour Winter Championship action continues right after this.